In 25 years I've been a head coach here, I've never dealt with a player or an entity like him.
We all know the story by now. Zach Edey, a 7'4" center, went from ranked number 436 in the country as a recruit to two-time National Player of the Year. He experienced one of the worst losses in NCAA tournament history, but also led Purdue to a place it hadn't been in 44 years. But on the court, how did he really end up here? Well, we gotta start at the beginning of his college career. And that game came on November 25th, 2020, the Space Coast Challenge in Titan Fieldhouse that seats just about 1,500 but had none because of the COVID protocols. Zach Edey, the 7'4" guy that hasn't played a ton of competitive basketball, what does he do? He comes out and puts up 19 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 of 10 shooting in just 16 minutes of play, winning the Ken Pom MVP along the way. And we'll talk about Ken Pom MVPs because Zach Edey ended up with a lot of them, but it started into the first one. And so you're going to see right here, right? This is his very first basket of his entire career. And you could see right away just some of the signs that, hey, this guy could be really good. There's like this play right here where this is just an insane catch. Like, guys like him don't get these types of catches, but he had it from day one. And so that does lead us to his freshman year, where he averaged 8.7 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 1.1 blocks in 14.7 minutes a game. And like I said, there were signs right away. Starting with the post-ups, he had 152 post-ups, shot just over 50%, which puts him in the 72nd percentile. And we look at where he got them from. 41% were from the left block, 43% from the middle, and only 15% from the right block. Now, on his post-ups, there just wasn't a ton of dribbles. It was a lot of seals. It was a lot of catch high, keep high, put it up. When he got positioning, it was over, and he had really good hands and finishing kind of right away, honestly, around the rim. But you could tell that he just wasn't always comfortable. He really struggled when being pushed out, and at times just really couldn't dominate his way to the glass. He also really wasn't used as a roller, which kind of correlates back to not having a ton of movement yet. And so let's look at one example of kind of what his post-ups looked like this season. And so you're going to see here, right, a lot of kind of ball movement up top or player movement, normal for Purdue. And as we kind of look right here, you see Edey, he's just kind of going to the weak side block and is going to seal. Now, maybe it wasn't always this way in terms of going weak side block and throwing this pass over, but it was a lot of this. You're going to create that inside leverage, get nobody between him and the rim. And just with what Purdue was able to do with their perimeter guys, that leaves that lob pass up over. And then also notice, catches high, keeps high, and goes up immediately. And so obviously there is a lot more to his post-ups from freshman season, but there are other areas I want to talk about too. And one of them is kind of this assist to turnover ratio. So when we look at his freshman season, he had a usage of 28.6, which means that when he was on the floor, about 28.6% of possessions went through Edey, whether it be a shot, turnover, or some type of assist. Now, his assist percentage was only 5.9%. Assist percentage is how many baskets while he was on the floor did he assist on. Turnover percentage is the other way of how many possessions when he was on the floor ended with his turnovers. So almost 1 in 5 possessions where he had the ball ended in a turnover for him. Assist percentage very low. And this is the most, like the biggest area where you could see him being uncomfortable. He just did not have a ton of feel with doubles. He didn't have a ton of body control yet, right, with his elbows just being that much bigger than everybody. And he also, I think, had a lot of predetermined reads. And so we're going to take a look at one of those kind of predetermined reads right here. And so see here, Edey does a great job sealing down low, creating space. Now, ball probably should have gotten into him a half second earlier. It doesn't. Now it's going to swing, and now he gets his post touch on the left block. Immediately, this weak side defender, he's going to come over and double, helping off of Ethan Morton. Edey knows the double's coming, and so what he does is just he immediately throws. He doesn't really look to see where any of the other defenders are. On top of that, it's not a great pass in general. He just kind of has fallen away, throws it up because he knows that's where the ball probably should go, and now it's an easy steal going the other way. Next area is rebounds. Now in this one, he had an offensive rebound percentage of 13.8, a defensive rebounding percentage of 21.4%. Now that just means out of possible offensive rebounding opportunities, how many offensive rebounds did he get? He got 13.8%, same thing, but for the defensive rebounding side. He was a very good rebounder right away. This was by far his worst season. Maybe some of it was just kind of due to that conditioning and that feel, but we're going to talk more about this one later. As with the next area, which is free throws, he went 65 for 91 from the line, 71.4%, and had a free throw rate of 61.1%. Free throw rate is just free throw attempts divided by field goal attempts. So how often are you shooting free throws compared to field goals? The last area that I'm going to talk about for freshman year before we move on is the defense. Now, again, kind of just with everything with Edey, this was just a year that took time to get used to. So team shot 66.4% at the rim when he was on, 60.8% when he was off, but teams took far less shots at the rim when he was on. Only 21% of shots were at the rim compared to 25.5% when he was off. So these aren't exact things to tell how much Edey was able to impact the game or not, but I think they're pretty good indicators. Teams shot well, but they didn't take a ton. He had 6.1 fouls per 40 minutes, and fouls were a big thing. So he fouled a ton in this, and teams were just scared to go at him, but generally when they did, they had success or he got into foul trouble. And now we're going to look at 2 defensive clips from his freshman season. This first one's going to start in a pick and roll. So Edey is just in drop coverage, right, where he is going to keep both the ball handler and the roller in front of him. That is his goal. And this is where a guy goes at Edey and they don't really find success. Edey had pretty good shot blocking instincts right away. Some of it, though, was he got into foul trouble, like I said. Here he does a great job blocking and keeping the ball in front. On the other side, though, this right away, and this improves throughout, I think, the entire career for him, is he just gets blown by here on the perimeter. And now once he has kind of gives up that leverage, the only option he has is either foul or just kind of give up. He gives up there, gives up the 2, and that was an area he made large improvements in. If you are enjoying, please like and subscribe as we head to Zach Edey's sophomore season. His season high in minutes was 27. His season high in points was 25 against MSU. This was the year that he split minutes with Travion Williams. Now, you started to see him really blossom as he had 14.4 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 1.2 blocks in 19 minutes a game. And as we head to the post-ups, he got featured a ton more. He started a lot of games. He had 284 post-ups, shot 58.2% from the field, which puts him in the 89th percentile on post-ups. And now seeing where he got him was a little bit different than his freshman season. 44% left block, 35 mid, and 20 from the right block. And you could just tell immediately he was so much more comfortable with his body and movements, a common theme throughout all the years. He showed the ability to now take a dribble or even 2 if really needed to get to his spots. There was obviously still just the dominance of him clearing out all the space he needed, and offensive fouls at times really still were a legit concern, but he was willing to go over the right shoulder more, he was willing to put it on the ground a little bit more, and it made him have more success. As we looked at one of his post-ups this season, I think one of the bigger things that changed is just his ability to, 1, put the ball on the ground, but then also handle the physicality. So as he catches it here on this left block, he sees the defense, right? He takes his moment, understands where the defense is at, and then takes a dribble and goes to work. Now you can see he gets reached in from a guard up top. He also gets, the defender does a very good job of kind of walling up and being physical, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. Edey was under control and he was the one that was able to score. Now, as we head to the assists and turnovers, his usage skyrocketed to number 9 in the entire country at 34.4, but his assist percentage went up to 16.2% and his turnover percentage dropped to 15.9%. The assist percentage took a huge jump in part because the team shot really well, but he also was just making better decisions. I think a lot of the turnovers still came when he was putting the ball on the ground, which is what he was doing more of, but there was a lot better decision making in the passing. As we head to rebounds, this is probably the biggest jump that he took from year 1 to year 2. Offensive rebound percentage, 21.3%. So 1 in every 5 misses that Purdue had, Zach Edey was rebounding. Defensive rebounding percentage, 27%. That offensive rebounding percentage was number 1 in the entire country. There was just times that he really could do whatever he wanted and just get any ball he wanted on the glass. And I think one thing that he did really good of is just creating that position early. So you can see here, this is a play for Sasha Stefanovic to come off, get a 3. Normal play for Purdue, Edey's going to set a pin down right here and then immediately seal his guy looking for a post up. Now Sasha shoots it. Edey's he already has this positioning. Look at this gap right here. He has that area because cleared and he continues to kind of push Amore out. And so now by the time that the miss actually happens, he's the one blocking out Amore. And so now he's able to get the ball and go right back up. We'll just throw up the free throws right here. 113 from 174 from the field, 64.9% with a free throw rate of 53.7. So the second lowest free throw rate of his career and the worst free throw percentage by a lot. Now moving on to the defense. Took a huge jump here as well. Team shot 54.9% at the rim when he was on, 65% when he was off. And again, they just took fewer shots when he was on. You also see the fouls drop. They will drop from 6.1 personal fouls per 40 to 4.2 personal fouls per 40. This is where that drop coverage that I showed earlier really started to improve. I think there was a bit more mobility. There was just a much better job in general protecting the rim. Still lots of work to be done, but you could see the jumps. And so again, here's going to be another clip. It's going to be drop coverage once again, right? So there's this screen. Edey's going to be back, and he just does a good job. He keeps the ball in front, but he also does not let this roller get behind him, because if the roller gets behind, then it's a lob. And so that's just the improvement in kind of his mobility, where now he's allowing his guard to actually get back and be able to contest the shot, right? It isn't always just Edey blocking shots or protecting the rim. A lot of what he provided was just the ability for his guards to not have to be able to get back and just force tougher shots. You know, it isn't him directly, but he does a great job there. I also want to bring up KenPom MVPs here. He had 11 this season. KenPom MVP, for anybody that doesn't know, is from the stats website kenpom.com, and it's just his kind of statistical way of saying who was the most valuable player per game. Zach Edey had 11 this season. He did have 3 his freshman season, including his very first game of his career. So now we move on to his junior season, the first of his National Players of the Year. 22.3 points per game, 12.9 rebounds, 2.1 blocks, and 31.7 minutes. Obviously, the minutes jump is huge, and we'll talk about that, but starting with the post-ups, 439, shot 54.6%, which puts him in the 83rd percentile, and where he got them changed a lot. 56% from the left block, 26 from the mid, 17 from the right block, and this was dominance. And a lot was really just shown during the PK 85 tournament. I think that's where he kind of put the nation on notice. He went from a good player to, oh, he just might be the best player in the country during that tournament. There was such better awareness throughout with his movements, with his agility, mobility, really just all of that. And it kind of came together along with strength, better touch. And at this point in the season and throughout the entire season, it became a lot of just give the ball to Zach Edey on the left block and let him go over his left shoulder. If teams can stop it, then they'll have to change. But spoiler alert, not many teams were able to do that. It was just most impressive that he could do it for 32 minutes a game while taking a beating a lot of games. So looking at this play right here, we started to see Edey be used a little bit more in movements to set up his post-ups. So this one, he's going to set this pin down, and all it's really trying to do is then seal his guy. So again, there's good spacing, and now he has position on his defender, and he just catches and goes up. This is part of where he just knew what he wanted to do. If he could go over the top, he was gonna. If he was gonna go to the left shoulder, he was going to do it. And then there's this play right here. Again, pin down, and then he's gonna seal his guy. Ball moves, it doesn't go to him, right? So now it's gonna go as he kind of steps out. He has to reposition on the left block. And I think the key here is, so as he catches it, he has a smaller guy on him. He knows that he's going to draw a lot more defensive attention. This is later in the season. And I think just the confidence at this point especially was he knew he was the best player in the country. He knew that he was the most dominant player, that most teams just couldn't do a thing about it. And so as he gets here, instead of, you see here, he kind of gets bodied up a little bit. It's good defense. And instead of, going up and trying to force a shot, he basically just takes half a second, readjusts, and then goes up. And so now as he's going, it's in kind of just fluid movement, and it is just a much better, more confident shot. Moving to the assist and turnovers, his usage, again, top 10 in the country at 32.4. Assist percentage went down to 13.4%, but turnovers did as well to 13.8%. He was just shooting the ball a lot more, and because nobody could really stop him consistently, so he was just going to take a lot more shots. He was much more comfortable passing out of double teams. His turnover percentage dropped by 7% when doubled. And I think a lot of it came from he just had better awareness. I showed it a little bit on the first post-up clip or the second post-up clip where he just takes his time. You kind of see it in this clip too, right? So he's going to catch it. He's waiting for Gillis to clear, which is what Purdue's going to always do pretty much. Now as soon as he recognizes, he just feels Mulcahy on his right shoulder going with the double team, he knows that, look, there's nobody protecting the rim, so then he's just going to drop it off. And I just think the awareness and the reads were so much better for Edey this year. On the rebounding front, once again, dominant. Number 1 in the country in offensive rebounding percentage at 21.6%. Number 15 in the country at 27.2%. I mean, he almost averaged 13 rebounds a game. He led the country in second chance points. He was a monster on the glass. Now, reminder, this was his first National Player of the Year award season. He went 177 for 241 from the line, 73.4%, and a 50.4 free throw rate. That was the lowest of his career. He wasn't even in like the top 100 in the country in terms of free throw rate. He just played through physicality. He did a great job of avoiding contact on both ends when he needed, and then he also knocked down a lot of free throws still. Lastly, the defense. 59.6% at the rim when he was on, 66% when he was off, and again, consistently, teams took fewer shots when he was on. The big number to look at here is the fouls went way down, 4.2 to 2.1, and so the rebounding and defense are probably the two biggest single areas of improvement. He made the All-Big Ten defense team. His instinct, I think, in shot blocking went up, but he also just knew when he was beat. Again, we're going to show the drop coverage just because it was so important for him to be able to improve there. This is on an empty-sided pick and roll that Marquette loves to run, meaning nobody in this corner over here. Puts a little bit more pressure on Edey as kind of being in this drop. Now he does a great job again of keeping the roller and the ball handler in front. Now he's kind of allowing his guard to get back into it. Now it's a dump off. He's able to recover, close out on the floater, and that's all you can really ask for. And kind of going back to almost a freshman year clip, here he gets beat on the perimeter, and instead of trying to foul or block a shot or really recover, he gives it up. He knows that his value is worth much more than just giving up 2 points. Like, he is so valuable to this team, he has to stay on the floor, and he recognized more, like, hey, I probably shouldn't go for that. He did end the season with 22 KenPom MVPs, but we all know how the season ended, with arguably the worst loss in college basketball history to FDU, but Zach Edey decided to run it back one more time. Now Edey decides to run it back. After winning National Player of the Year, there's no way he could improve, right? But he did just that. 32 minutes a game, 25.2 points, 12.2 rebounds, 2.2 blocks. And as we go to the post-ups, again, 534, shot 54%, which puts him in the 85th percentile. And where he got him from was a bit more balanced. 42% from the left block, 36 mid, 21 from the right. He just physically was so much better than the year before, which is pretty crazy because that was better than the year before, which was better than the year before that, and so on and so forth. They had to start mixing it up where he got his touches. It couldn't just be fully left block, go to work, over the left shoulder. Teams were trying to take that away as much as possible. At times, obviously, he still did that and got to do what he wanted, but a lot of times more was there's just kind of this movement added to it to set up his stuff with rolls. Now this play right here is called Horns High-Low, and it is probably the play Purdue ran the most out of all their plays. It felt like throughout the entire season. If they wanted to get Edey a touch, they were going to go to this. And so Horns, you have two guys kind of in the slots extended, two guys in the corner, and ball at the top. Ball handler, Braden Smith, would always go off of Edey, and then you'd have the other guy pop while Edey rolls. And so what I'm trying to say by kind of setting up with movement is, as he's rolling, now Edey's hitting the guy. Edey is hitting Renew right here, and he's the one that's going to create the contact and create the space. You have the two guys from the corners lift to give Edey as much space as possible. And so now as Edey catches it here, he just has so much space to work with. He has pretty much all of the positioning and leverage. Renew does a great job here of getting his hands in, but Edey just doesn't really care and just shows the level that Edey really got to at finishing around the rim. Now, there was also another element added to his offensive game, and it showed up a little bit of junior year, but it really took off this past season, and that's the Braden Smith-Zach Edey combo. Edey was used more as a roller than ever. Now, sometimes like the clip I just showed, it sets up his post-ups, but other times it was legitimate rolls and letting Braden Smith do his thing too. I think the most important thing that it did is it opened up kind of looks for Braden Smith against the hedge. So here, Edey's going to set the roll. Northwestern is going to kind of be in this hedge with the defender who's guarding Edey. He's going to be up top. Now what this does is it puts a ton of pressure on this weak side defenders. Northwestern has to kind of send somebody over, except for this time it is like 6'3" Ryan Langborg. Now Edey also is going to show off some of the footwork and just again, he improved so much back from his freshman year. When all he could do his freshman year was pretty much catch and put the ball up, now he's setting a screen, rolling, catching, spinning immediately off the defender, and dunking. He even improved in terms of passing. His usage was 33.4, assist percentage went up a little bit to 14.6%, turnover percentage down just a touch, smarter decision making, and just less forcing of the ball, more comfortable also passing out and kind of reposting. Now as we look at this play right here, you're going to see post up, right? He gets the ball, and it's just so much quicker decision making. He sees the double, immediately comes down, and he trusts his guys. He's like, all right, I'm just going to kick it out to Fletch, who's going to knock down a three. And it's just the little things like that that just added up over 4 years and turned Edey into the best player in the country. Rebounding, again, elite. 18.1% offensive, 25% defensive, number 3 in the country for offensive. He did his thing. Now in terms of free throws, 310 for 436 from the field, 71.1%, 80.9 free throw rate, which was the 9th highest rate in the country. Teams started throwing 2 to 3 bodies at him a ton more, especially after what FDU was kind of able to do to them in the tournament. Now, in terms of the whistle, right, it was a very, very big talking point. My take on it is, yes, Edey got away with stuff, but for every one of those calls that you think Edey should have been called for something, you could probably find at least one, if not more, of where he got fouled and it wasn't called. When you're 7'4", 290 pounds, move well, and get the ball most possessions, like, it's just going to be a lot of fouls. He wore teams down consistently, and that was one of his biggest strengths, is he could do it for 35, 40 minutes a game. I mean, you look at the Tennessee Elite Eight game, like, dude sat for barely any time at all, and it just doesn't matter. He could keep going because even at 7'4", 290, he was better conditioned than you, and it just made it tough for teams to be able to try to guard him for that long. And lastly, the defense. 63% on him at the rim, 69% at the rim when he was off the floor. And again, teams took less shots. He didn't foul a lot. He became truly an elite defender for one of his roles. I think he was one of the 15 finalists for Defensive Player of the Year. His timing and coverage at the rim was so much better. And it goes back to, once again, his conditioning was elite. He played 32 minutes a game, and that's because there was 9-10 games where he'd only play 20 to 25 because Purdue was up 30. Like, his per game average is probably a lot higher than that when you filter out kind of these bye games or the games that they blew teams out. He could do it for 35 minutes, and so for every play-to-play type look, he was able to move better. He was able to protect the rim better. He was able to guard on the perimeter a little bit more, and it was just so crazy to see that development. I bet you can guess it right now, but we are going to look at a drop coverage clip from Zach Edey here. Empty sided corner again. And just, I mean, it is just crazy how much better Edey was. Obviously, there were flashes of this his freshman season of what he's about to do here, but this was most plays, honestly. And so he's able to understand, like, hey, I need to step up just a touch to stay with this ball handler. I also know if I need to get back to the roller, I can. And so now he's able to really contest that floater and just make it a tough shot. Now, were there plays where Edey got just absolutely burned on the perimeter? 100%, but it was far less common than I think people realize. You see here, Edey has two people wave off everybody else saying, hey, just go one-on-one at Edey, and he did a good job on the perimeter. He's just going to stay with him. And the thing with Edey is even if he gives up a half step now, he has the mobility and obviously the length at 7'4", 7'10" wingspan to be able to block the shot. It doesn't matter if the guy gets half a step, he's going to be there. And honestly, there was more often than not where guys just didn't even get that step on him. And so as we finish this up, 30 KenPom MVPs out of 39 games played for him, 76.9% of games. He was a KenPom MVP in 47.8% of games. He led Purdue to the national championship game and the first Final Four in 44 years, on his way to the second National Player of the Year, highlighted obviously by the Tennessee Elite Eight win where he had the iconic Dalton Connect block right at the end to kind of seal the game. Now his eyes are set on the NBA, where he projects to be a first-round pick in the upcoming draft. Yes, guys his size and position aren't seen as much in the NBA, but also there really just isn't anybody like Zach Edey.